guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Irene and I'm a registered dietitian, and today we have another pediatric nutrition case study on the topic of supplemental enteral nutrition. As always, this case study is 100% made up, but based on a variety of my experiences. So for our scenario today, patient J is a 13-year-old male with a history of ulcerative colitis and recent weight loss. He was seen in clinic and found to have lost 4 kilos over the last 3 months due to abdominal pain, diarrhea, and poor PO intake. He's being admitted directly from clinic for management of his IBD and nutritional rehabilitation. He currently weighs 33 kilos and is 155 centimeters tall, and at a previous visit 3 months ago, he weighed 37 kilos and was 154 centimeters tall. So let's first take a look at his anthropometric measurements. So because he's 13, we're going to use the CDC growth curve, and we're just going to plot all of his measurements on here. He's 156 months old at 13 years old and 33 kilos and 155 centimeters. So as you can see, he is currently very thin. His BMI Z-score is negative 3.16. His weight for age is pretty low as well. Now let's look at where he was 3 months ago. So he was 153 months old, 37 back then, and 154. He was looking much better then, still on the thinner side, but his BMI Z-score was negative 1.44, so much better than it is currently now. Next, let's kind of look at what his weight change and his height change has been. So he is currently 33 kilos and he was 37, so he lost 4 kilos. Since this is weight loss, I always like to put it into perspective and put it into a percentage. So divide by his previous weight. So he lost 10.8% of his body weight in the last 3 months. That's really bad, especially considering his weight gain goals for his age are 9 to 13 grams per day. So this is an age where he should really be gaining quite a bit, but he is clearly not, and he's in fact doing the opposite. In terms of height gain, he should be gaining 3 to 5 centimeters per year around this age range, which he looks to be following that. He gained 1 centimeters in the last 3 months, so pretty much right on track there. So now that we kind of have that information, let's look at malnutrition diagnoses for him. So he definitely meets a lot of criteria. One thing for sure is his unintentional weight loss of more than 10%. So that puts him in the category of severe malnutrition. And then looking at his BMI Z-score of negative 3.16, that also puts him in the category of severe malnutrition. If you were to look at the decline in BMI Z-score, there was only a decline of 1.72. So that puts him in the category of mild malnutrition. However, we're always going to go with the most severe. So he definitely meets criteria for severe malnutrition. Now that we kind of have our background information, let's go and talk to the family. So let's say that grandma is at bedside and she primarily helps to take care of the patient, and she reports that patient used to eat very well and have a great appetite, and he eats a regular diet, does not have any dietary restrictions or allergies, and is not picky at all. But recently, due to frequent diarrhea and abdominal pain, patient's only eating about 50% of what he used to. And the following diet recall is obtained from grandma, which she reports is pretty accurate of what his current intake is. So at breakfast, he'll have 2 eggs. For lunch, he'll have a BLT sandwich, and for dinner, a small portion of meat and veggies. He drinks a lot of water, about 45 ounces per day, and also has some Gatorade sometimes when he does sports after school. And so overall, it looks like he's eating a pretty generally healthy diet, but it seems like he's just not getting enough calories. And that's probably due to his discomfort, his abdominal pain, and diarrhea, which is also related to his IBD. So while the medical team works on managing his IBD and the medication side of things, they also came and talked to us about nutritional rehabilitation for this kid because he's lost so much weight, and they really want to make sure that he's meeting his nutrition needs, because that is also going to help him with his IBD and making sure that treatment is successful. We decide to place an NG tube to help with his weight gain and his nutrition status, kind of just based on the progression of disease. And this is a decision that I definitely don't make on my own. It is always a discussion with the medical team whether or not it is appropriate. So kind of based on what the medical team decides, that is what I will discuss with families. So if the medical team has already decided on placing an NG tube, I will go and talk to families about what schedule is going to work best for them, because at the hospital, we're kind of in a closed, contained environment. Not a lot of things are going on. Parents have undivided attention directed towards the children, but at home, they may have other kids or other family members, and it can can be really hard to juggle. So I want to make sure that it's a sustainable plan for home. So for a lot of our teenagers, especially around this age, we will opt to do nocturnal feeds, which is like feeding at night, kind of give them the nutrition that they need and then allow them to eat during the day, get hungry and all that stuff. And that also allows them to take out the NG tube in the morning after the feeding so that they don't have to go to school with it. And then the parents will just place it at home at night before the feedings start again. Now, this may not be the best for all patients. Not all patients can tolerate putting an NG tube in every night. It is not very pleasant at all. So I always leave it up to patients and families what they think is best, because a lot of times having a tube going into your nose, that can lead to a lot of bullying at school, which may not be the best for the patient. So even though it may be unpleasant to place a tube in every night, that may be what they choose, and I'm okay with that. Kind of just my assessment of this kid. He's definitely not meeting his calorie needs based on his diet recall. That is definitely not enough for a growing teenage boy, and you don't have to be a dietitian to kind of see that. He's clearly not eating very much. Now let's talk about his estimated needs and what he should be getting. Since he has IBD, I am going to use the Schofield equation and use a correction factor of 1.5 to 1.7 and kind of make that my range. And unfortunately, I don't have any sources to cite for using this equation and correction factor in my IBD patients. It's just what I was taught, and I feel like it has been pretty accurate most of the times that I've used it. When I've compared it to the DRI for these patients, it is quite a bit higher, and I think that a lot of these patients, they do need extra nutrition because their body is just in such a catabolic state, especially when they've had a lot of weight loss recently. I feel like at baseline, they kind of do need a lot more calories than a regular patient does. So looking at the Schofield equation, we're going to use the male 10 to 18-year-old equation, and this one uses kilos and centimeters. So I'm just gonna plug everything in there. So we get 1264, and then I'm gonna multiply that by 1.5, and that gets me 1897, and divide that by 33. So he needs 57 as his lower bound of estimated needs. We're gonna go back and take this number right here and multiply that by 1.7, and we get about 2149, and divide that again by 33. So our range is going to be 57 to 65 kcals per kilo per day. Now in terms of fluid needs, we're going to use Holiday Seeger. So for every kilo above 20 kilos, it's going to be 20 milliliters times 13 plus 1500, so 1760, and I like to meet at least 80%, so times 0.8. So our range is going to be 1408 to 1760 milliliters per day. So in terms of formula selection for our IBD patients, I typically like to lean more plant-based, so that would be your Kate Farms and your Complete, because some of the other milk-based products have some of the additives that we like to avoid in our IBD patients, like maltodextrin, carrageenans, and sucralose. But otherwise, a standard regular intact protein is totally fine for these patients. So I am just going to go with a standard plant-based formula, and the one that I picked is just Kate Farms Pediatric Standard 1.2. This is the one that my hospital has on formulary, so I use this one quite a bit, but using Complete Pediatric Standard 1.0 is also great as well, or any of the 1.5. Since he's 13, you could also use any of the adult products as well. 13 is kind of the age where you can start to transition kids from pediatric products to adult products. So if you wanted to use the Kate Farms Standard or the Complete Standard or any of those adult plant-based products, that is also an option as well. So in terms of coming up with a regimen, I kind of like to pick the middle of our estimated needs range and just go based off of there. And then that kind of gives me a little bit of leeway to round the numbers a little bit, just to make things a little bit easier. So for him, about 61 kcals per kilo per day is going to be the middle range. So that's kind of going to be what I'm going to aim for. So he's 33 kilos right now, so 2013 calories a day. And because he's eating by mouth, I'm actually only going to shoot for about 50% of his estimated needs, so I want half of that. I still want to encourage him to eat by mouth, and this is more so just a supplemental thing to help him get back to where he was before and gain that weight back. Kate Farms Pediatric Standard 1.2 is a obviously 1.2 formula, and it is a 36 kcal per ounce formula. So that means for every 1 milliliters, there's 1.2 calories. So you can just divide by 1.2, and that gets you 800. I'm going to round to say 840 milliliters a day is what he needs. And because we want to do probably an overnight feed, let's say that this family agrees to do that and that's what they want to do. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it. Sometimes I like to ask parents how long they're usually in bed at night. I feel like for a lot of kids, we can just assume about 8 hours. So if I'm doing 840, I can divide that by 8 to get a rate of 105 milliliters per hour for 8 hours. If we wanted to look a little bit more closely at exactly what he's getting and calculate the protein and free water needs, we can always look at the nutrition facts provided by the formula company. So there are 48 grams of protein in each liter, and he's gonna get 0.84 liters of it because of 840 milliliters. So it's gonna come out to 40.32 grams of protein per day. And we always do things in grams per kilo, so divide by his weight. So it's gonna be 1.22 grams per kilo per day of protein. If you wanted to look at the free water to determine how much water he needs in a day, this formula is actually 75% free water. So your 840 times 0.75. So it has 630 milliliters of free water in the 840 milliliter volume that he's going to be getting. So we calculate out his fluid needs to be 1408 to meet minimum 80% is what I like to do. So subtract the 630 and you get, I would probably round up to 780 milliliters per day, and that comes out evenly to 26 ounces of fluids per day. So kind of to summarize the plan for him, we're going to continue with the regular diet, and we're going to recommend starting Kate Farms Pediatric Standard 1.2 with a goal of 105 milliliters per hour for 8 hours overnight via NG tube, and this will meet about 50% of his estimated needs. So in terms of advancements, I typically start anywhere from 5 to 20 milliliters per hour and advance by the same amount that I start with. How fast I advance kind of depends on how big the kid is and how well I think they'll tolerate. So for him, I feel like we could probably start at 15 milliliters per hour and advance by 15 milliliters per hour every 2 to 4 hours, kind of depending on tolerance and labs. We still do want to monitor labs for him because he does have severe malnutrition and this really acute weight loss. There is still a little bit of refeeding risk, although because he has continued to eat throughout this time, it is not as high as someone who has just completely stopped eating. So I think that it's still good to monitor labs at least daily just in case. And sometimes with these IBD kids as well, if they have low iron levels, we may give them doses of Injectifer, and Injectifer can cause low phosphorus levels. So that is also another good reason why we would want to monitor labs at least daily. And then he will need an additional 780 milliliters per day of free water to meet about 80% of fluid requirements. So that's kind of our plan for this patient, and it wraps up our case study for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you're looking for more dietetics content like this, look for the dietetics playlist on my channel. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!